What's up, everybody? I am your host, a loser who watches way too many horror movies and has no idea what he is talking about. And that is my co-host, an internet film critic here to tell me my opinion sucks. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we count down our top 10 movies of the year. From studio horror to indie breakout hits, we are ranking the movies that define 2025 for us. And after this, we want to hear what defined the year for you guys. So definitely hit us up and tell us what movies you loved and hated from this past trip around the sun. So we have finally made it to the best of episode, which is actually one of my personal favorite episodes. I always anticipate how our lists are going to match up, and more importantly, how they're going to differ. This is probably one of the hardest, I would say, it has been for me to kind of figure out your list.
Yeah, I haven't even had time to think about your list because I've been thinking about mine.
Yeah, I think we both ran into the same problem where the first half was actually fairly easy. The back half was really difficult.
Yeah. I did struggle with what was going to be one, but I definitely that back half of the list, man.
Well, yeah, because
it was tough.
You're kicking stuff off the list completely.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies that fell right in the same range.
Yeah.
If I was to say a rating range, the high threes, like 4.
Yeah, I agree.
Between like 3.7 and 4, which normally makes up the back half of the list. I didn't go by rating specifically. You know, I put ratings on each movie, but I more kind of went with how you went with it in the past.
What I liked.
Yeah, with it being a horror list.
Yeah.
And that was specifically because this year there was some movies that were really good movies, like fantastic, high-rated movies, but didn't have enough horror in it for me to
I can agree with
put
that,
it high up on the list.
So if this is your first best of episode of ours, we do not discuss this at all throughout the year. Basically what we do is we each have a little book and we kind of fill out our book of our new movies we've seen, and then this is where we kind of reveal who liked what.
And we talk about a lot of movies through the year, but as far as like where it's going to fall on our list, and the best proof of that is because we don't even fucking know normally where anything's going to fall on the list. There was a couple months ago where maybe a little over halfway through the year where there just hadn't been a whole lot of like super strong movies.
No, there was kind of a bunch of in the middle movies.
Yeah, so I already knew that there was going to be a really hard time making out that back half of the list that we haven't had in the past 2 episodes. And we did get some strong movies, though, in the back half of the year.
Yeah, I think we started doing the book thing, like 2 years ago or something, because we realized it was hard to remember the movies that came out in the beginning of the year. And, you know, we don't have time to go back and watch the first 6 months of movies that came out and kind of refresh our minds. So the book thing works out really well. I would recommend anybody who really likes horror movies, go that route.
Yeah.
You can kind of go back through and see what you thought about it when you've seen it. But before we dive into all of that, I have another movie to give away. And this week, it is mega hit Sinners. And once again, if you have already won a movie from us this past month, you are still eligible to win this one. So everyone is still in the game. So here's the deal. The first person to send me the answer to this question will win a brand new Blu-ray copy of the film Sinners, one of the biggest films of the year. So here we go. Name the connection between Sinners and Stephen King. I will say it again. Name the connection between the 2025 movie Sinners and the horror writer Stephen King. As always, you have unlimited guesses, and you can email the show directly. You can comment on YouTube or Spotify, any of the social media pages, or you can DM us, whatever works for you. Also, we still don't have a winner for weapons. You guys have some really good guesses, like some shit I would have never thought of, but you guys are looking too deep into the film. You got to widen your search. You got to think bigger. And I said it last episode that if we didn't have a winner yet, I would give away a hint. And this is going to be a big one. The hint is Apartment 7A. There's your hint. As always, good luck to you all, and I cannot wait to hear your answers. Actually,
that's a pretty big hint.
Yeah, it's a pretty big one. I can't wait to hear the answers, though, because a lot of the answers, especially for this past question, have been stuff I didn't even think of. So you guys are out-thinking me. Before we get this going, to keep it fair, Jordan and I flipped a coin to see who goes first, and the winner is me. I won, even though Jordan called it.
That's a broken fucking quarter. That's what that is. I had to make sure it was a quarter. And I think you got a cheat quarter.
I bought it from the magic shop. There's just two tails, tails on each side. So before we kick this off, is there anything you want to tell the world about your list before we start?
No, I think I pretty much covered the little bit of difference between how I did it before.
Yeah. We're both kind of going, we're not basing our list off ratings, which means, you may see my number 1 with like a 3-star rating and my number 2 with a 4-star rating. That's really all it is. We'd like to base our list off of how much we enjoyed the film. But that being said, if a movie is not on our list, it doesn't mean that we didn't like it. It just means there was 10 other movies we just enjoyed better. That's all it is. And if we could include like shows and miniseries, Welcome to Derry would be my number 1. That shit was so good. It was like the best horror thing of all year, in my opinion.
Well, when did From happen?
From didn't have a season this year.
Oh,
it doesn't come out until this year.
I was thinking maybe it would have been at the very beginning of last year, but goddamn, when does that come back on?
It's actually about to come back on now.
Thank God.
Yeah, if you're not watching From, you're making a mistake. It's so good. And just a heads up to everybody, there will be spoilers in this episode. So we will try to drop some warnings here and there, but just a heads up right off the bat. All right, let's dive into these lists.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say? The morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And considering this is an episode about reviews, give us a 5-star review, and hopefully we landed on your top 10 podcasts of 2025 list. All right, so let's kick this off with my number 10. I went with 28 Years Later, which I personally gave a 3.7 out of 5. It was, of course, directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland, who, of course, did the original. And there was some things I really liked and some things I didn't like with this one.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here before we talk about this. This is also my number 10.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't think that's ever happened on the first one.
No.
I was really concerned with there actually maybe possibly not any of these that hit on the same.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's going to be some on your list that aren't on mine and vice versa because of how hard the back half of that list was.
That's crazy.
That's quite a start, and I gave it a 3.8.
Wow. Okay.
And I also really wish I had time to go back and watch this movie because this was one like we discussed that I really, really, really like had to dig hard in my brain when I was trying to decide if it was going to be at my 10.
I believe we actually did a Fresh Meat review on this movie.
Yeah.
One of the few of the year.
Well, I wish I would have remembered that because I would have went back and listened to it.
I'll kick it off with the things I loved. I love the quarantine zone 28 years later. I really wish we could have seen the city, though. I love them showing the progression of the infected and how they had changed over the years. It definitely added a more realistic feel to the movie. And there are some really well written and acted characters in this, but I personally think Ralph Fiennes is like the shining star of that movie. And I think that he is actually why I'm excited to see the second one, which is about to come out.
Yeah, I agree. You know, prior to the release, I had no idea what direction they were going to go in. And, you know, although the story didn't connect to the other one, they started fresh. I really liked seeing the quarantine zone and how everyday life worked 28 years later into the virus. I really liked the alphas, the added. I think some people probably dislike that, but I like the added element of there being these infected that really just, got smarter and
They're
stronger.
like the king of the jungle, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I thought this movie had a handful of scenes also that really built suspense on a whole nother level. And specifically, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but the running on the water bridge at the end of the movie. That one was like that scene was so long where they're running trying to make it back to the quarantine zone.
That's a good scene.
And this fucking thing is after them and it's like, holy shit. It lasts so long, and the suspense was awesome.
Yeah, I totally did forget to say, but there are going to be spoilers in this thing.
Yeah, I tried to keep mine as spoiler-free as possible. There's going to be things that are obvious we have to talk about.
Yeah, I kind of put it in mine as like, I'm going to give a warning before I drop kind of a movie-ruining spoiler. That way, they know they could skip ahead, but...
Yeah, there's a couple in particular, a couple movies where I know we have to have spoilers to really, really talk about it. Another thing I really liked about this movie was the cinematography.
Oh, God, it's a beautiful movie, yeah.
Yeah, and it was shot mostly on an iPhone.
iPhone, yeah. They can put lenses on smartphone cameras now, like different lenses, and then it's also a really good idea to download a more professional operating system just to run your camera on. I did that actually on mine, and you can kind of get rid of the settings that the company puts on there, and you can actually play with them yourself. And they obviously know how to work a camera, so I'm sure they got 100% of what that camera was capable of.
Well, it's just really cool to me, the really awesome cinematography that you can get without going out and renting or buying, a $30,000 camera, which is what most movies are shot on, up to 50, up to 100,000. I've looked up cameras that movies were shot on, and some of them are ridiculously expensive. I also like that it gave this movie its own feel. That was one thing with the first one. It had a very unique way that it was shot. And this one also has a very unique way it was shot. And it really gives itself, its own feel.
Yep. So I'll jump into the things that I didn't like about it. I know they're trying to set up a longer story here, but the movie does drag a bit in the first half. It's not bad, but especially when you can compare it to the first one kind of gets going pretty quickly. This one doesn't. But they're trying to introduce, what's been going on. They're introducing new characters, but I do feel like it kind of hurt the movie for me a little bit. Another thing is, in my opinion, they kind of pulled a Last Jedi move with Cillian Murphy. Like, they totally played it up how he had signed on to do the movie, and then we watched the whole thing and he's not even in it.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like a rug pull for me. And then they were like, oh, well, he's in the second one. Well, you should have led with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we all went in waiting to see, just like we went to go see Luke Skywalker at one point in time, and he was in, the last 30 seconds.
Indy
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah, definitely. That felt like a rug pull for me, and that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth for this one. And finally, the ending is absurd, goofy, and it doesn't fit with the feel of the rest of the movie. And that's my biggest reason why it landed on 10 was the ending.
Yeah.
It was just so odd.
It's actually, unfortunately, when I think back at the movie, one of the first things I think about
Is the ending.
is how just it felt like a different movie. It felt like it should have been a post-credit scene.
I thought it
that
was a
like,
post-credit
supposed to be,
scene.
yeah, like a post-credit like comedy scene that didn't actually have anything to do with the story. It's just kind of a goofy thing that they wanted to put in there. But no, it's actually the ending of the movie, and that was. It just feels like somebody completely different did the end of the movie.
Yeah. My final thoughts for it is overall, it's a good movie, but I think it had too much hype compared to the film that actually came out. So, yeah, 3.7 from me.
Well, I guess that puts me going on to number 9. All right, so this one's going to be a little controversial.
Oh, okay.
I almost didn't put this on my list, and I know a lot of people would have shit. So I had to go back and change my list a little bit last minute. But my number 9 is Sinners. And
wow, that's way down there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So overall, rating-wise, I gave this a 4.7. This is one of the best-made movies of the year.
It is.
I mean,
It is a good movie. It's like everything about it is really good.
It really is. Like overall, it's amazing. The story sucks you in from the beginning. The acting is absolutely incredible. Like Michael B. Jordan playing two characters.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That works seamless. It's crazy. Like it blew my mind when I found that out afterwards. The timepiece element was done to perfection. The cinematography in this fucking movie is incredible.
It's 5 out of 5, yeah.
When you go back and watch this movie and he's going through the town in the beginning, there's this whole 1800s town and everything's fast moving. And at one point, and they do it in a lot of scenes, but one I'm going to specifically point out is the two Asian friends that they have that own
the stores, yeah.
So she asked, the dad asked the daughter to go get the mom over making a sign. And they literally shot that whole scene in there of him talking to her. And then they followed the daughter out the store, across the street, down one block, into the store. She talks to her mom, walks out. The whole time there's cars going by, there's people walking, talking, like this very fast moving town. And she walks all the way back, and then they finish the scene. This is all shot in one take. Well, not one take, excuse me. I don't know if it was done in one take. It's all one continuous shot.
I think it is.
Like,
I think it's one take.
The camera is literally follows her, and the amount of preparation that goes into scenes like that with the timing on cars going by and certain people walking by and people saying things as the camera passes. It's just really incredible. You can tell that a lot of money went into this movie. Very, very, very high budget. I think it was like $90 million budget.
Yeah, it was
crazy.
up there.
I really love the music lore part of it. Why it is so low on my list is because this is a top 10 horror movie list.
Yeah.
And this movie, although the vampires are awesome, don't even show up until like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And the story is so good, you almost forget that you're watching a horror movie. Like when the vampire part happens, you're like, oh, fuck, I forgot that this is supposed to be a scary movie.
Well, you think your brain almost tells you you're in like a period piece drama movie.
Yeah. It feels nothing like a horror movie until the vampires show up. The vampires looked incredible. We got some really like horrifying, suspenseful scenes at the very end. Really awesome practical effects at the very end. Yeah, my only reason that this thing is not higher on the list is just because there's so little actual horror in the movie. But as a movie, it was one of the best of the year.
I can say that it is most likely, and I didn't see everything, but it's most likely the best made film of 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very well done. It is gonna make an appearance again later on, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying. So my number 9 is Hell of a Summer, which I gave a 4.0 out of 5. I know a ton of people are like, that's way too high for that movie. It was directed by Finn Wolfhand and Billy. Oh, I didn't get his last name. Some guy named Billy, who's also in the movie. I loved that we got a fun camp slasher this year. And the reason I rated it so high is I just had a blast watching it. Like, I just had a good time. I love the fact that I totally dislike pretty much all the characters. They're all like very shallow and selfish people, which we see a lot of in this age of like influencers and like internet personalities. There's a lot of people like that.
They make fun of those people a lot. That's what I loved about it. It is very much a comedy slasher, and they poke fun at that whole generation of the influencers. And
yeah, definitely. And it makes the movie more fun. There are some characters that I do enjoy, like the guy from Fear Street. He plays like this lovable loser who just refuses to like grow up and become an actual adult. And so, I mean, he's a fun character to like, but it's just a fun movie, man. It's a fun slasher that happens at a camp. It's campy, and I'm real picky about my horror and comedy. And this movie has a lot more comedy than horror, but it landed on this list because I had such a good time. I just had fun watching it. Matter of fact, I actually told you about it after I'd seen it, and then I ended up watching it again when you watched it. It's just a good time.
I ended up watching it twice because I did the same thing. I watched it, and then I had Brooke watch it.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Watched it twice. Yeah, it was a very fun movie. I think one thing that really stood out outside of the stuff you already mentioned was the camp vibe. Like, I thought they got the camp vibe really
They did.
good.
I agree. The stuff I didn't like about it, the kills are not anything to really brag about. This movie could have really stepped it up a ton with some fantastic practical effects. And worst of all, there is a ton of camp slashers that they could have used as inspirations for these kills.
Yeah.
That's what they should have did.
Yeah, if they would have paid homage to a handful of other slashers, camp slashers, taken some Friday the 13th, some Sleepaway Camp, The Burning.
Yeah.
Like, taken like the most famous kills from those movies and replicated them as paying homage. That would have been awesome.
Well, especially considering the whole reason the movie was made is because these two guys, they met each other at somewhere. I don't know if they were in a show or whatever together, or if it's Stranger Things connected. I don't know. But they both really liked horror movies and camp slasher. So they made this movie. And I'm like, man, you guys should have had better kills. Also, the killer reveal happens way too early, in my opinion. It kind of ruins the whole whodunit aspect of the movie. Not to mention the whole killing to become internet famous is like, for me, it's like a bit of a ripoff of Scream 4. That's not too bad, but the reveal is too soon.
Well, Scream 4 does it in a much more realistic
A better way. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's like jealous of the attention and she's fucking crazy. Whereas this was just purely to get internet famous, which can only exist in a comedy movie. Like, you can't put that in like a very realistic movie because it's so unpractical. But yeah, I agree. This movie was very much a whodunit camp slasher, and revealing the killer that early on in the movie is a big mistake.
Definitely. My final thoughts on the movie: this movie's just really fun, especially watching it with like some friends or family. It's even better. Like I said, I'm really picky with my comedy and horror, but this one just kind of hits right. I really enjoyed it. It's a good time, and I gave it a 4.
Yeah, definitely funny.
Yep.
I'll put that. I do remember it nailed the camp, the camp vibe to it, but it's got some really funny parts in it too.
All right, so moving on to my number 8. I went with Ugly Stepsister, which I gave a 3.9 out of 5, and it is directed by Emily Blitchfield.
I also have The Ugly Stepsister at number 8.
No way, we're already on 2? Wow, this is crazy.
And I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Wow, well, we're even close on the rating. So this was one of those horror retellings of like a classic Disney story, which in this case, it was Cinderella. I honestly thought this was gonna be terrible, and I ended up being totally wrong. Like, this was a good movie. So what I loved about it, I had no idea before watching this that it was gonna be a body horror movie. So it totally took me by surprise with that, but like in the best way. So the stuff with the tapeworm, it made me cringe so much. Like cuz it's like mostly active in the back half of the movie. And it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it makes you kind of like want to curl up into a ball every time a tapeworm scene comes up. Like even the belly growls and stuff with it's just, oh man, and it just gets more horrendous.
A movie that makes me squirm in my seat.
Definitely.
Like as much like body horror is not my favorite genre of horror, but I have so much love for a movie that can make me legitimately squirm in my seat. And that was what this movie did.
Yeah, it does it a
100%.
lot too. A lot.
Yeah. I remember when this movie took Sundance by storm. We covered it. I covered it in the news. I did know it was going to be a body horror because I looked so much into it when Sundance came out, and I was trying to predict what was going to get picked up for releases this year. And this one almost immediately after Sundance got picked up for I guess, released to streaming, I think it was.
Yeah, it was like a streaming distribution deal.
But this is a Norwegian, I believe.
I'm not sure.
It's a Norwegian, so it's not in English. So heads up, if you haven't seen this, you do have to read it. But I will say, once you get into it, you almost forget about that.
Yep, 100%.
It is really good. I love the fairy tale setting in a movie that turns so dark. And this is actually really true to the original Brothers Grimm story of Cinderella.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is the actual, like, the stepsister, like, cuts her foot off to fit in a slipper. That's in the actual
That's awesome.
Brothers Grimm story of Cinderella. And Disney, of course, ignored that part of it.
Yeah.
So not only is this like a dark fairy tale, but it's more true to the actual fairy tale story, the original story, than what most people know of. This really highlights the commentary on unrealistic beauty standards in the same way that The Substance did. That, it very much in that way reminded me of The Substance, but I enjoyed the setting and story of this so much more. The Substance is a very bright, flashy Hollywood movie, where this is a very dark retelling of Cinderella.
Yeah.
And the sets were amazing. The cinematography was amazing. The color palette for like a really dark fairy tale was spot on. Obviously, the shining star of this is the amazing practical effects. You mentioned the tapeworm scene.
Yeah.
The cutting off of the foot.
Oh, that's the best part of the movie.
It is so fucking like just.
And it keeps going.
Yeah.
It just keeps getting just bad.
It is so fucked. Like, that's all I can say is it's just so fucked.
It puts Saw, where they saw his foot off in the original Saw, like, it puts that to shame. Like, hands down. Like, this is what they should have had in that movie. The effects on the foot chopping scene are, 5 out of 5. I mean, they're great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some just really gross, grotesque stuff in this, and it just, for some reason, I love it so much with a fairy tale Cinderella story.
Yeah, the couple things that I just didn't really like about it was, like, it does take a little while to get into. It has a pretty slow first half. Honestly, if they would have cut about 20 minutes of that out, I think it would have been a little bit better of a movie. because this movie really, really shines in probably about the third act. This isn't like a big deal to me, but I think the fact that it being in a different language, that's kind of a turnoff to a lot of people who otherwise would really enjoy this movie. There's a whole chunk of fans that just won't watch a movie if it's in subtitles.
Yeah, I do wish that they would take this movie and do English dubs over top of it, because if the right company goes in and does the dub,
Like Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark is a great example of that. Like, when you start watching it, you can tell the mouth and the talking's a little off, but once you're like 15 minutes into it, you don't even notice it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that they could definitely do that. This is Norwegian. That was German, I'm pretty sure. So very close in language, I'm pretty sure. Very close, at least in geography and Europe. So I would imagine that they could pull that off pretty easily. But yeah, I agree. I would have watched this movie. I for the viewers out there, I watched this movie last night.
I think it was like the
And-
last movie you watched, probably.
Yeah, and I wanted to watch this since I heard about it taking Sundance by storm. But it just got put off and put off and put off for other movies, especially when you got kids in the house or you're worn out, you're tired from work. You're like, I don't
want to
really wanna
read for an hour and a
right
half.
now. But once after the first 10 minutes, I forgot I was even reading it. Matter of fact, my oldest daughter was up, and there's definitely, I had to tell her, like, you gotta get out of here at a certain point in this movie, because there is some very upfront sex stuff. But there was some stuff they were talking about, and I almost told her to cover her ears because I forgot I was reading it. And I was like, oh, shit, she can't read.
Yeah.
So,
My final thoughts on this one, it is a fantastic body horror film that has some great effects that'll make you squirm in your seat. If you are somebody who is willing to sit and let a movie spend like an hour building the foundation for the story, it's a pretty wild payoff. So I think it's worth it. I gave it a 3.9.
yeah, good movie.
Yep.
Definitely a good movie. All right, so with my number 7, I went with Together.
Oh, wow.
Yep, another really good body horror film.
Yeah, I really like that one.
I didn't mean for those to be back to back with The Ugly Stepsister and then Together, the two really, really good independent body horror films of the year, the two best body horror films
Definitely.
of the year. Yeah, I thought that not only the body horror, but the psychological horror in this movie was fantastic. What really shined was the acting. Dave Franco and Allison Brie, who are, for those that don't know, married in real life, created like a really electric chemistry.
Oh, their chemistry is a big reason why the movie works.
Yeah, they definitely carried the movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It is a really cool story. And like the fucking twist ending of finding out like this cult that essentially when you love somebody, your body combines as one, and it leads to some just insane fucking awesome practical effects. Cool story, but like I said, those two definitely carry the movie. Their chemistry is definitely unmatched, and that makes sense because they are married in real life. The atmosphere of this movie also really good. Visuals, really good imagery. This was an extremely like creepy and dreadful, and the way it was filmed, it's hard to explain, but this is one that you constantly feel like something is about to happen, and the characters are never safe. Like, I don't know if anybody else got that feeling watching this movie, but the way it's shot, it's very suspenseful once you get into the story and they get out to the cabin, and you constantly feel like there's something looming around the corner.
That's a good point. I do remember having that feeling, but I didn't pinpoint it when I was writing out my review for it. I think there was something else that kind of stuck out to me a little more, but that's a good point, because I didn't realize as I was watching that movie that I had that like anxiety playing in the background, because there's a lot of scenes in that movie where, you're just like, oh no way. Like, because you get an idea what's about to happen. At least my brain jumps to like the most, because I know it's a body horror movie. So my brain automatically jumps to like the most crazy thing. And I'm like, no way. And then it'll happen. And you're just like, you almost want to hide your eyes, but you don't.
Yeah, and there is, like you said, the anxiety, like even the small stuff, like him pulling the dead rats that are like mingled together, which is really, just it's kind of like a hint of what's to come with these rats all mingled together and their bodies like combining. But just in that scene of him going up in the light, like it's just, you feel like something major is about to happen all the time. And there's some just really awesome effects when they get stuck together in the bathroom at her job. Like, that shit is fucking, like, hilarious, but at the same time, the psychological horror of that. And, man, Dave Franco does such a good job. I feel so bad for him at times in this movie. Like, the dude, like, can't catch a fucking break. And I thought it was really good. Overall, I gave it a 4.1. Thought it was really good.
Yeah, that the bathroom scene, because I've talked to a few listeners about that, and I always just refer to it as the bathroom scene. Everybody knows what you're talking about. It's one of those, it's one of those scenes from the movie that sticks into everyone's memory. I do think also it is really good commentary on what happens to a lot of couples that got together when they were young, and now they're moving into the middle age territory where, everyone slightly changes as you enter into the next big stage of life. And some couples start outgrowing each other. And that is kind of the backbone of this movie, is you're seeing these two people that they worked really well when they were 23, 24, whatever, but now they're moving into their 30s. Their priorities are changing. And in their case, a supernatural event kind of occurs. And even though it seems like they want to separate, they're now that's going to be impossible. So it just makes that situation even more challenging.
Well, and it comes down to how much they really love each other, despite all these differences and things. Like, it parallels real life.
Yeah.
Like the whole, body horror aspect of it, and the fucked up shit that's happening really does parallel, like you were saying, real life relationships. And these two had such good chemistry that I couldn't get it out of my mind that they had some relationship problems in real life. And I'm sure that's not the case, but they played it so good. Like, it would be awkward to have these real relationships and then to do this movie, or have these real relationship issues and then to do this movie, but they did so good at it, and the awkwardness, and it was just, there's so many moments of this movie that make you feel super, super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I've said it before on the show, a movie that can make you feel things, whether that's, disgust, discomfort, dread, happiness, no matter what it is, a movie that can make you legitimately feel that and forget for a second that it's a movie is really doing its job.
No, for sure.
And this movie does that job.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to recommend this to a couple couples that I knew, because I think it's like a good movie for couples to watch. We see that in the movie, she's kind of taking that next step and focusing on her career, and he is still a struggling musician trying to make it, which is, really difficult to do. Try to make it as a musician, like a musician, that this is their job, not a side thing. And she has given him a lot of time to make that happen. But I think in the movie, she's at the point now where it's like, this is kind of your last go at it, and then you need to start helping contribute, because she is obviously bringing in the the majority of the bacon.
Yeah, she's the breadwinner, but at the same time, despite him not bringing in much as far as the financial part of the relationship, he is giving up his dreams for her advancement of her career.
Yeah.
Which you can tell that really bothers him. Like, that really drives a wedge between the two in this movie. And although, I very much sympathize with her more as being the one who's, growing and carrying their family. They don't have kids yet, but them two as a couple, you can sympathize with him too, with the fact that he knows that this is it for him.
Yeah.
Like, he's giving up on his dreams to allow her to advance in her career. No matter what side you're on, you can kind of see both sides of the picture and kind of sympathize with them both. And then they both have friends that are telling them that, the other one's bad for them.
Mhm.
And that's really toxic, and it happens in real life relationships all the time. And yeah,
Well,
it got two real points.
Well, that was kind of my point I was getting at is, this stuff happens in real life a lot. And then you basically just made this story that happens to a lot of people into a horror movie. And I think that's just what interesting. It makes it cool, and it makes it where you can recommend it to a couple. I did try to recommend it to somebody recently, and they took it the wrong way. They're like, "Oh, well, we're not like that." And I'm like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you could kind of watch the movie and you could probably pick out at least some stuff here and there that you've dealt with. But it's just kind of a fun couples horror movie, I think.
Yeah, and also, like, a big thing not to forget here is, despite all the other things that's going on, the thing that keeps these two together is that they do truly love
Yeah.
each other. And they get down to a situation at the end of this movie where they really have to make that decision and prove that in the most sacrificial way possible. And they make that decision.
All right, so my number 7 is Bring Her Back, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars to, and this is, of course, directed by the Philippou brothers. There was a ton of anticipation for this one after the huge success of Talk to Me, and for some people it lived up to the hype, and for some others it did not. So, I'll start off with what I liked. I really enjoyed the brother and sister relationship, which I totally give credit to the actors for that. They had fantastic chemistry that honestly makes that relationship very believable. Also, Sally Hawkins did a fantastic job at playing the crazy foster mom Laura. She kind of carries the movie with her performance in it. The plot twist where we find out that Laura spent like 20 years working for the Child Protective Services, it is such a blow to the audience because we're like, the brother finally escapes, and then we're just like, he's not going to be able to get anybody to believe him about this because she worked there for so long. That was a great little addition to the story. The creepy ass VHS tape is totally what got me hyped for the movie. And honestly, for me, is like still a highlight of the movie. Like that imagery with that creepy ass tape. We don't see it a lot, but it is honestly what it draws me back to see it again. Just the imagery. The imagery and effects alone is the best part of this movie.
Yeah.
The story's okay, but I think the imagery and stuff is really the draw for this movie.
Yeah, this movie I absolutely fucking loved. The imagery definitely top notch. The found footage tapes, man, I loved those because they were so creepy and unsettling, but at the same time they dropped little clues as to what was going on in the story. Each time they play, there's clues that are dropped, and then once you find out what's going on and you look back, all those tapes actually make sense. And I think it's even better on a second watch when you know that and then you see the tapes and it falls into place a lot better.
Yeah, this is a movie that I have been trying to get a second watch in for some time. But, we spend so much time trying to cram all these new movies in for this specifically. I have not gotten to see it yet for the second time, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I know you had some questions on some of the found footage stuff leaving the theater.
Yeah.
Stuff that I did catch on to and small things I remember trying to explain to you that I caught in the found footage. And I think that upon a second watch, I think you'll like it even more.
Yeah, my bad stuff is, it's probably a me problem, but I spent most of the movie trying to figure out like what the hell was actually going on. And the reveal just did not give me what I was looking for. I totally left the theater still a bit confused. The story was kind of a little thin. I didn't get enough info to really leave the theater satisfied. And the good example is that's the stuff with the tape, and I just did not pick up on those little clues for some reason. And my other negative is it is another trauma horror movie, which I think people are starting to get fatigue by this subgenre because it's been kind of around since Hereditary. Like it's really been peaking over everything else since Hereditary. And I'm starting to see people kind of get a little burnout on the more A24 trauma horror kind of thing that's been going on. I think that's starting to run its, I think it's starting to run its course for a lot of people. I mean, there's always going to be people that are going to be into it, but very similar to what we've seen, in the slasher genre in the 80s. So much stuff came out that eventually people started to lose some interest. And I think we could start seeing this with the trauma horror stuff.
Yeah, I think with casual fans, yeah. And, casual fans are always looking for something new. But then there's, fans that really like a certain subgenre or a certain feel of movies. I would have had no problem if the 80s never stopped putting out slashers and it just continued forever. And we got, that many more fucking 80s feeling slashers. I would have been fine with that. And that's kind of how I feel about, I guess you can call it trauma horror.
Oh, it's like a subgenre now. Full on.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how it's done, but I think that this movie's done extremely well, and it's one of the things I loved was that it didn't spoon feed you, and you really had to pay attention. This is a movie that I could have went into the theater like tired from work and not quite on it and not paying super close attention, and maybe left the theater with some confusion too. But the Philippou brothers definitely
They're on a roll.
They have a knack for unsettling and creepy.
Yeah, my final thoughts on this one, it is visually creepy as hell, truly a movie that will inspire nightmares. If you are willing to leave the theater with possibly some questions still on the table, if you're still really into horror movies that were about like past traumatic events and, the traumatic event itself is like the true villain of the story, I think this movie's for you, and I think that you will really enjoy it. So it did get a 4.0 for me. I did enjoy the movie. I just need to go back and watch it and pick up some more on some other things. And I do remember too, there was some stuff you explained to me that's not directly given an answer to. It's kind of up to you to interpret it, which I do like movies like that. But I went into this one not knowing that because Talk to Me was pretty...
Well, no, they did that with the end of Talk to Me.
But they did at the very end, and it was kind of more of a simpler question. This movie seems to sprinkle that out throughout more of the movie than necessarily Talk to Me did. But yeah, still a really great movie. All right, so my number 6, Final Destination Bloodlines, which I gave a 4.1 out of 5.
So, before we talk about this one,
did we land again?
Yeah,
no way, dude.
My number 6 is also Final Destination Bloodlines.
I thought this was going to be the most diverse list we've ever had, and we've never had 3 land on at the same time. Jesus. Okay.
I gave it a 4.0.
Oh, so I'm like 0.1 ahead of you, and I already know why I'm a little bit ahead of you. We finally got a Final Destination movie, which is about time. I don't think this franchise is ever going to get old, which is a good thing. So, first off, the title totally lives up to the name. This movie actually manages to explain and connect the previous movies. The characters and how fun this was, especially with the addition of the comedy, it actually fits in this story really well. I don't really remember the other ones having this many like funny one-liners.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that I think it is 4. Is it 4 that's awful? Is the 4
race
is
car
the
one?
race
Yeah.
car one
Yeah,
that's just
yeah.
terrible. The 3D.
I don't even remember that one.
Yeah, I've never made it through that full movie. That is the one where the CGI, the whole NASCAR stadium crushes people. I've never gotten past that part. I do know that though in 3, I remember there being some comedy and some one-liners when they're at the theme park, fucking with each other and stuff. But I definitely think that this movie, you made the comment this franchise will never get old. And I can agree with that if it's written right. And they fucking Guy Busick and Laurie Evans Taylor, which are the writers on this, absolutely crushed this.
Yeah. Another thing, and this comes back to them, is the story being centered around a family this time instead of like classmates, coworkers, or just strangers. These are people that really, really know each other. And we see something in this one with a family dynamic that we have not seen in any of the other ones. And that was a really cool addition. Most of the kills were really fun and entertaining. This is obviously, the kills are the backbone of the franchise, but specifically the MRI kill, which was actually done practically, best kill in the whole movie, I think. Also, another good one to bring up is the dad who dies at the backyard cookout. That is a classic Final Destination kill.
Yeah.
Like all the lead up and just absurd things that like death is doing to make you knock over a stick to hit a rock that rolls and knocks this thing over that hits a button that turns. I mean, it's like classic Final Destination. And my last good thing, and I think this is kind of one of the most important, was Tony Todd, and his send-off was hands down amazing. The fact that they did it like he was talking to the characters, but in reality, he's talking to like us, his fans. It was super emotional and super sad. Like you really feel it in your chest for that scene. And apparently what he said wasn't even in the script. Like he just came up with that off the top of his head. And despite the fact that we mostly knew him from like Candyman, I think it was fitting that his last scene was a Final Destination movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So as far as my likes on this one, very, very close. One thing I love about this franchise is that they all follow the same rules of death, knocking them off one by one, but they each have a little different way that death kind of hints at what's going to happen. And they all have like just a slightly different feel, but they all follow the same premise. And this one having the whole family lineage, like this one person was supposed to die, and now essentially when she dies, her whole family one by one is
like a domino,
going to be picked off. I just thought that was genius. Like, I'm surprised that anybody even thought of that. Like, it was really fucking smart, and it just fit the mold so well, and it feels so much like a Final Destination movie, but it stands on its own too, as it separates itself from the others. Like, it has its own premise. I do love the Tony Todd getting his farewell. Also, there was always the question of his character.
Yeah.
Like, why does he know? Like, who is he, and why does he know so much about death?
And he always pops up at like a autopsy or something.
Yeah, like the creepiest time, and he's always like super creepy about it. and you always know that this guy has some information and he knows something that we as the viewer don't, but they never reveal that throughout the other movies. And finally, in this movie, with this being his last and his farewell address, they wrote that into the story to explain why he knows what he does, and it's because he is a survivor of this.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was fucking genius too. And then we get some incredible kills. You mentioned it, the MRI kill, the backyard kill, like definitely awesome kills and some awesome practical effects. I do think they used CGI a little heavy on some of the stuff.
They definitely did, yeah.
Like the building falling down, I get it. You're going to have to CGI some of that shit. You can't knock a whole fucking building down. But,
Twice.
Yeah. There was some other moments in there where I thought that they could have rode around it or found a way to do it practical, and they didn't, and that would be my biggest complaint.
Yeah, I honestly think that's probably the 0.1 difference we have is I think I'm a little bit more forgiving for a lot of CGI use. But that's my guess is that tiny little bit of a difference in our rating. My bad stuff is, despite it already being in the good category, the kills also found their way into the bad category because I think that we had too much rushed CGI. I mean, all the Final Destinations, they have to use CGI, but this one uses a lot and some of it does not look great.
Yeah.
I think that's the big difference. And speaking of that, one of my big complaints is the final kill scene with the train crash and the logs. And this is going to be two complaints in one. So first up, the CGI in the kill is just too over the top, in my opinion. It looks a little video gamey to me.
Yeah.
And especially the blood splatter from the logs.
I hate when they do blood splatter with CGI because you can always tell.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in CGI being used for things that are not possible at all with practical effects or to slightly enhance a practical effect. And a good example of that is like Evil Dead Rise. Most of that was practical effects, but they did use slight CGI to amplify some of the stuff, and they do it seamlessly. Like, it looks awesome. Like, none of it stands out as like, oh, that was CGI, that was bad. And generally, blood splatter, things like that are very noticeable that it's not real, it's CGI. And that's one thing that I definitely think that this movie could have done better.
Well, here's the second part of the things with the logs is I think they missed a huge opportunity here where they could have made this actually another premonition where the main girl, she sees this, she wakes up, she saves her brother from the train wreck, and it totally starts this cycle over again. Like, that would have been your entry into a sequel because, when you watch Bloodlines, it looks like they wrap everything up. The cycle's finally over. This could have started it again, and we would have been right back into some more Final Destination movies. And my last issue, the opening premonition scene, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. Besides the NASCAR one, this was actually my least favorite opener. And I think it was because there was so much CGI.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to ever beat the NASCAR one because that was just egregious. But yeah, the original Final Destinations coming out in the early 2000s, they were able to do those and use CGI when they had to, but do most stuff practical. Like the fucking car wreck in 2, like
that was
as much practical effects as they used on that. They worked to make most of that like legitimately looks good.
Took them a month. They were out there for a month.
Yeah.
And I remember them saying in behind the scenes, the biggest problem they had was they couldn't get the fucking logs to actually bounce.
Yeah.
So they had to figure out a way to pull them up and use CGI to take out the cable.
Yeah.
But
and that's just a split second of that whole scene. And they spent all that time on the wreck, the accident, because they know that that is a big part of the Final Destination movies, is the accident and then the kills. Like, that's the two things people go to for a Final Destination movie. So the fact that they couldn't come up with a accident and put the time in to do as much stuff practical effect wise, that's my biggest complaint.
Yeah, my final thoughts on this one. If you love Final Destination movies, then, definitely check this one out. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's full of crazy ass kills. It's got a couple twists and some fake outs, which are always great. I'm definitely a fan of this one. 4.1 from me.
Yeah, agreed. 4.0 for me. It definitely fits good in the Final Destinations. So going on to my number 5, I went with The Long Walk.
Good movie.
J.T. Molnar, I gave that a 4.5. This is his take on Stephen King's short story, The Long Walk. I felt like this one was going to be special from the time that I seen the trailer. Like, the moment I seen the trailer, I don't know what it was, but it just really stood out to me. I think that this is a masterpiece example of superb storytelling. This is also the second year in a row that J.T. Molnar has had a movie high up on our top list. I assume this one's going to be somewhere on yours.
It could be coming up.
Yeah, it's the second year in a row we've had him have a movie high up on the list.
Yeah.
Last year's being Strange Darling, and the strength of that was amazing storytelling. So this dude is proving to be a really good writer.
Dude, he's like a junior Mike Flanagan right now.
Yeah.
Like, he is figuring out a way to tell a good story.
Yeah. You got no set, very little outside of the group of people that are walking. We have a couple flashback scenes, but outside of that, a majority of this movie is them walking on the road.
It is.
And
it is.
to keep people wrapped up in a story takes amazing writing and dialogue, character building, and he got an A+ on all three of those things. And then also the acting. The acting has to be incredible.
Definitely.
And the acting was, everybody absolutely killed this, especially the two main characters. The horrifying thing about this movie is the psychological terror of knowing you grow to like some of these characters and you know they're going to go. And in the back of your head, you're always thinking, especially with the two main characters, that one of these two have to die.
Yeah,
And they become best friends, and it's like, holy shit, what's gonna happen?
You start dreading more and more as you get further along in the movie.
And you have this dystopian world, and you find out, and you don't really notice this in the preview, but these kids know that everybody's gonna die except the winner before they go into this, and everybody signs up for it, and it really hints at the unseen horrors of everyday life in this dystopian world. And we do see little bits of this, and it's very like our main character, he has his dad killed for certain teachings and stuff, and it's very much like you hear stories out of North Korea.
Well, it's super 1984 is like it rings true to that book a lot, because we see that in that book where listening to certain music or looking at certain art would get you jailed or killed. And that is very much what's happening in this reality for this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, overall, this one, man, you grow to love the characters knowing that all but one of them are going to die. You don't want either one of the two main ones to die. It has an absolute insane ending, and it's just, I would say from the second half on of this movie, when they really established the characters and who's close, it's just, that looming in the back of my mind made it so dreadful. as
Yeah.
it slowly worked its way to the end of the movie.
Well, I would say if you have not seen this movie and you plan to, it's gut-wrenching. It will emotionally fuck you up. I mean, not everyone gets feelings like that from movies, but this movie, importantly, is really good at grabbing your heartstrings, like pulling you into these really good characters, these really cool relationships, and then you remember, like, oh God, they're gonna die. When you start the movie that pretty much everybody is going to die except for one, possibly two, because you do get a little glimmer of hope of like maybe there's some way that they can figure out to like both of them to survive, but that is not the case. This movie uses really good writing and character development along with acting to emotionally fuck you up,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, and as much as you kind of hope there's a way that both of these two survive, I'm glad that they didn't because it would almost feel like cheating.
Yeah, it was a cop out. Yeah.
Yeah, it would take the entire premise of what made this a very dreadful and psychological horror movie out of it. Somebody had to die, and despite you hating that, you had to sit and watch it. Like it had to happen. And it really, really makes you sad, has a really sad ending. And, I go back to any storyteller that can really make you feel emotion has done its job.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually got a bit of the opposite feeling when I saw the trailer because I was like, I don't know. I don't know about this one. This doesn't really seem like a whole lot happens. And I was kind of surprised when I watched it of how much I really liked it. All right, so my number 5 is a movie we already talked about. It is Sinners, which I gave a 4.7 out of 5. And this is, of course, directed by Ryan Coogler. Hands down, one of the best films of the year and easily one of the most talked about movies of 2025. But like we said earlier, this is what filmmaking is like about. Like this thing is a work of art. The acting is incredible, especially for Michael B. Jordan, who manages to play the two main characters flawlessly. And what's crazy is he plays them in a way where, despite these two being twins, they're just enough different where you can actually tell them apart, which is kind of how, when you meet real twins, that's kind of how it really is.
Well, yeah, and that's a fucking extreme testament to his acting ability. To be able to, play two different characters that are almost exactly the same but have slight personality differences, and to keep up with that, and also a testament to the directors and whoever planned out the cinematographers of how they were going to shoot this stuff and how they were going to make it work. I mean, these two were these two characters are in half of the movie scenes. They're both
yeah.
And they even are like pass each other cigarettes, and
It's crazy,
they still
man.
pull it off.
Yeah.
Seamless.
Yeah. Next is cinematography, which is fantastic. This is a beautiful movie that I really, really kick myself in the ass for not going to the theaters to see. I believe, too, that they even showed it in IMAX. And I really would love to, if it ever comes back out, I would love to go see it in a theater. That scene where they're playing the music and it kind of turns into like this, like all these different kinds of musics that helped inspire the blues was fantastic. So huge shout out to Autumn Durald and Arkapaw for doing a great job. They did the cinematography on this movie. Characters and story development. This is what separates it from other movies that just look good. This movie not only looks great, but it has a fantastic story, almost to the point where you don't want any of the characters to die. Like,
Yeah.
It's like one of those movies. And the thing that struck me the hardest was the relationship between the two brothers and the relationship with the one brother and like the mother of his child. Like the child dies like a year or something before. Those are really good relationships story-wise.
Yeah.
Okay? They're done very well. Another thing is the time period, which I think was done really, really well. It transports you back to the 1930s. And I read somewhere that Ryan Coogler took a page out of Robert Eggers' book and only wanted to use stuff that they had in the 1930s. And in my opinion, that kind of dedication truly shows up on film. We talked about it with The Witch. We talked about it with Nosferatu. They did it here with this movie. And it just, I don't know what it is. Like, it's like a magic or something where you're just sucked into that time period.
Yeah.
So this movie did a really great job with that.
Yeah, and one thing that I didn't mention whenever I had this higher up on the list, and it was one of the things that really kind of changed my mind and made me go back. As of today, it wasn't on the list until I got up today, and I thought about it last night, and I got up today, and I was like, man, it's got to be on the list. It's just too good of a movie. I know it doesn't have enough horror in it for me to put it high up on as far as my scary movie list, because it's not scary most of the movie. But man, there is a post-credits ending scene.
Yeah.
That really is the thing that changed my mind.
That was a good one.
Them jumping to the future and showing the other brother that you think had died, and then his girl, and they show that she ran off, and the brother couldn't kill him, but makes him promise to never go after this kid.
Yeah.
And he grows up to be a famous blues musician, and he's like old and about to die. And they come to him, and they haven't aged a single bit, but they're like dressed in 90s.
They're like early 90s hip hop,
yeah. And man, I thought that was just such a good touch to the ending.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of bad about this. The reason it is not higher on my list is because it's not fully a horror movie to me. The vampire plot line seems really small in the first half, and it doesn't really show up until about halfway through the movie. To me, this movie is more about the South in the 1930s and these really interesting characters, and the vampire plotline is more of like an event that happens in this young black musician's life, which is why, despite the fact that I love this movie, it is not my absolute favorite horror film of the year, but still a very good movie. My final thoughts is it's a fantastic movie across the board. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it, especially if you're a big film fan. I think this is going to be for people that really love good storytelling, good acting, and just a movie that looks good. It's a 4.7 for me. One of the highest rated movies I rated this year.
Yeah, undoubtedly one of the best overall movies of the year.
All right, so we're heading into my number 4, Weapons, which I gave a 4.4 out of 5. I'm getting to the point now where I'm saying it, I'm just waiting for you to be like, oh, I got that too. Of course, this was directed by Zach Cregger, another one of the most talked about and biggest horror movies of the year, which I really enjoyed when I first seen it, but actually enjoyed it a lot more on my second watch. So, one thing, some of the stuff I loved was the premise, and more importantly, the promo for this, which, if you can remember, it kicked off with a little girl telling the story of a whole class of kids just running off in the middle of the night, never to be seen or heard from again. That's a fucking hook right there. Like, that immediately pulled me in. Like, great promo.
Yeah, that is an amazing way to suck you into a story. And holy shit, this movie was like just a what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. I personally love when a movie grabs your attention and makes you think like, damn, I've got to see this in order to find out what happens. Another thing is like how the story was told. And if you haven't seen this movie, or if you have seen this movie, then you know what I'm talking about here, because what it does actually is it tells the same story over and over again from the perspectives of all of the main characters. And to me, it is very interesting and refreshing when this is done well, which this movie does. It's like a really cool thing. You don't see it a lot. We talked about it with Strange Darling. Strange Darling does something similar where you see kind of a little bit of the end of the movie, and then you slowly, because you immediately think like, how did we get here? And you immediately start seeing the same story from everybody's perspective. And I think it's just a cool way to tell a story.
I also had Strange Darling as something that the way this story was told reminded me of. Although it's different, it's also much like Strange Darling in that it was a really refreshing way. Strange Darling is told in like 6 chapters, but they're not in order. And as you're getting all 6 chapters, you start unlocking keys to the story where you're figuring out what was going on. And that's exactly what this did. But instead of telling one story in a different timeline or different timeline of events, it is one story through the eyes of like 6 or 7 of the characters.
Yeah.
And I thought that was genius. It really makes you, all the characters are so real and so believable that it really makes it, you can really relate in some way to every one of the characters.
Yeah, definitely.
And have sympathy for every one of the characters, because you see from their perspective, like every one of them is the main character at some point in the movie, and you really get to see their side of things, and that's something that we don't ever get.
Yeah, there's a character in there that kind of immediately seems like a bad guy, but then you get to his version of the story and you see that really he's just super upset that his son is missing. There's really like everything kind of points to this one person, and they're not saying anything. Supposedly they don't know anything, and he is getting really aggravated with that. And yeah, I may not handle that situation the same way, but you see more of why he is handling that situation the way he is. Kind of helps you build that sympathy for that character.
That goes back. His specific story goes back to that trauma horror, and as a parent, I may handle that situation the same. When you lose a child to something as crazy as what goes on in this movie, I may be that parent that's at the police station every single day banging on the door asking for fucking updates.
Now, one of my favorite things, and this is going to be a huge spoiler if you have not seen this, skip ahead, but I loved how they kept it a secret that this was a fucking witch movie.
Yeah.
The whole reason this event even happened is because of witchcraft. Like, that's cool, man. That was so awesome. I love that kind of reveal. And finally, one of my favorite things is, and this is a bit of behind the scenes info, there was a major bidding war over this movie that was apparently like unprecedented, with all of the major studios giving Cregger like anything he wanted. And the only reason why WB/New Line beat out Netflix wasn't because of money, but because New Line offered Cregger's a guaranteed full theater run, which is awesome. And I love that there are still directors that realize like how important theaters are and are actively fighting to keep streaming from taking over.
Yeah.
Like, that is awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that. As handy as it is to stream something, put it on streaming after it goes to a theater run. There is many movies that I've seen in the theaters that I would not have had the same experience at home, and those are cherished moments. And the idea of a world where that wasn't an option is sad.
Yeah. Some of the bad, I don't have a lot, but I do have some. I'll start it off my biggest gripe, which loops back around to the hook that I was talking about. I don't quite think the payoff of what happened to the kids quite lives up to like what I wanted it to be. Like, I really enjoy the witchcraft stuff, but at the same time, it turns out the kids were like, they're in this basement the whole time, like in this kind of magic trance. And again, like I'm totally fine with that. But I think that the first time I saw this, I was expecting like a Mike Flanagan reveal. Like, oh my God, like a mind opening reveal. So it's not to say the reveal was bad, but I think my anticipation was a little higher than maybe what it should have been. Next is like I really wish we would have gotten like a tiny bit of backstory on Aunt Gladys, like who the fuck she was, or was she really like even related to this family? And if not, like how does she pick the family? Because it does seem like she kind of comes out of nowhere. So I would have liked just like a little crumb of what was going on with her. But I mean, those are two really small gripes. I don't really have any like legitimate gripes about the movie. So my final thoughts, this is a really good, surprisingly really fun movie to watch. It's got some sprinkles of comedy in there too. And I gotta say, I think because of how the story was told, it is a standout when it comes to 2025 horror. Once again, Julia Gardner knocks it out of the park. It's a very interesting mystery, and it has the ability to like lighten the mood when things get a little dark in the story. So definitely good. 4.4 from me.
Yeah, fantastic movie. I'm gonna hold back fully on what I'm
Yeah.
gonna
I
say
know.
about
I know
it
it's
'cause
still coming.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's up there.
All right. So what do you got for number 4?
So my number 4 is Shelby Oaks.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I gave this movie a 4.5. This is the debut of YouTube film critic Chris Stuckman. And overall, this is a fucking awesome mockumentary found footage mix movie.
Yeah, it's a couple different things.
Yeah. It mixes found footage, mockumentary, and like traditional storytelling all in one.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was pulled off beautifully. It really sucks me in from that first like documentary opening of her talking about her sister being missing. And, as you get into the footage that was recovered, like it just really, they did a really good job making it feel real. This movie is at times horrifying. Like it has some really, really, really just scary, genuinely scary moments. His ability to build dread and suspense through cinematography, atmosphere, timing, and writing is on full display on this. I think this guy actually might be somebody to look out for in the future. And we did get Mike Flanagan executively producing, so like going into this, for Mike Flanagan to put his name on it, and then Neon jumped in there.
Yeah.
And put some money forward for some reshoots and stuff before they did the full release. They seen some serious potential in it. Absolutely, just overall the atmosphere and the feel, the legitimate scary scenes is why I ranked it higher than others with maybe better overall stories, because the back half of this movie, like the ending came up a little short for me. Like the ending was not like not necessarily the reveal, but the ending with the sister being killed and all that, just
Yeah.
it wasn't the best. But why this movie is ranked higher than others with a stronger story is because a lot of the found footage and the mockumentary stuff was just so awesome. Like the imagery, it was horrifying.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene of that movie is a found footage scene, and they're in like a cabin or whatever, and you catch that like reflection or glimpse of something creepy in that window. And they say in the movie, like, yeah, we released this. The cops went over this thing for years, couldn't find anything. We released this image, or we released this cut on YouTube, and fans found it like immediately. And I think that was like one of the coolest, scariest parts of the movie, because when they first play it, my eyes picked up there was something there, but I couldn't move fast enough to see what it was until they rewind it in the movie and pause on it. And I think that was just like, I don't know, it was a very realistic attempt.
That is, yeah.
Because we watched a lot of like creepy ghost shit on YouTube, and your eyes are always scanning for the weird thing going on in the shot.
You always, you also have like this realistic thing of, if you put this thing on like a platform like YouTube, and you have all the internet sleuths and just people watching it 'cause they're into stuff like that. Like there's Reddit pages for investigations and stuff, and when you put enough minds together,
You got millions of
Yeah.
eyes watching this. Yeah.
you're going to figure it out faster than
Than
simply
2, 3
yeah,
people. Yeah, definitely. I did really enjoy Shelby Oaks, but it lost me the halfway through. Like
Yeah.
it
The second half is nowhere near as strong as far as the story as the first half is.
once she goes to the town by herself, and it's essentially just her in the movie, and we've switched over to just standard filmmaking at this point. The story wasn't engaging enough to keep me as engaged. The first half, fantastic movie. I really wish we would have just kept going with that.
Yeah,
Because I love the found footage in the like Netflix documentary. I love it mixed together. Like that was a genius idea.
it felt real.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it felt like if you didn't know anything about it, you walked into a room and seen that, you might for the first half of that movie be like, okay, is this a legitimate documentary?
Yeah, I don't know how true this is, but I did come across a Reddit post with some people who actually seen it, the festival cut, and apparently they cut out a little more of the found footage stuff to replace it with more of the standard movie stuff. And I almost wonder that if they release a physical media version of it, are they going to have that version? Because I would rather see more of the found footage stuff,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, and that's why I put in here like the ending, the second half of the movie, the story is a lot weaker. The end of the movie, I didn't care for. Like it wasn't like mind blowing. Kind of seen part of it coming, like the sister dying. I seen that coming, but the reason it's so high up on this list is because of the first half of it, and that there was some legitimately scary parts
Yeah.
in that first half.
All right, so what's your number 3?
So number 3, and I just want to say from this point on, all 3 of these movies were fucking bangers. Any of them could have went for the first place. I have Weapons at number 3. I have this at a 4.7. This movie, for me, came out of nowhere. I know it blew up. Everybody was talking about it.
$268 million this movie made.
Yeah, I did not see that coming
I didn't
prior
either.
to its release. Zach Cregger's storytelling was absolutely amazing. We talked about it before, but telling the story from different perspectives, telling the same story from different perspectives of all the characters as you slowly unravel what's going on here, that was fucking genius. This whole movie, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And that keeps you sucked into the story. And I was super shocked and super stoked when this turned into a witchcraft movie. And then it totally made sense. Like all these kids going,
Yeah.
this witch, like she needs these kids to continue to live. And it was like almost like, how did I not see that coming? But at the same time, the movie didn't feel like a witchcraft movie at all.
No.
So
no.
it was so low key witchcraft. And I fucking loved that. It was awesome moments of suspense and dread. Absolutely awesome effects in the end of this movie. Amazing cinematography. There's one scene in particular at the very end where they're following these kids and the camera's going in one single shot through the house, out the broken
Oh,
window.
yeah, that's wild.
Like, dude, the cinematography on that scene, that final scene where all these kids get released, is fucking incredible. Like the camera work of going through the house or filming from the side of a kid jumping through the window and running through a house, but the camera's outside, but tracking and following the whole time was just amazing. Like the planning and shit that had to go into that, hats off to them. And then, there's a psychological horror aspect as a parent. And my favorite thing about this is the fucking ending scene. Like, when all these, spoiler alert, when all these kids descend on this fucking witch and start tearing her
Oh, it's
apart in
so
this
good,
yard,
yeah.
it is, like, one of the most, like,
It's satisfying.
just satisfying, awesome endings of a movie. Probably the most satisfying ending of the entire year.
It was,
Like, and the
yeah.
practical effects of it are amazing. Like, they're, like, ripping her face apart, and it's just fucking awesome.
Dude, what fucked me up was the scene where the parents are stabbing themselves in the face with the forks.
Yeah, dude,
That was
that shit's
unsettling.
insane, man.
Yeah.
Like when she sits that kid down and she tells them that, and they start fucking just going to town on their face, and then you feel so awful for this kid because he's having to spoon feed his parents soup to keep them
Every
alive.
day, yeah.
And also when she looks through the window and sees them sitting there in the dark,
That's super creepy.
super creepy.
Yeah.
And then the fucking like little drug addict kid gets in the house and he sees them sitting there, and as the viewer that they're already sitting there because you've already seen her story. And when he like runs into them just sitting there with their fucked up faces, man, it was just, there was so many awesome moments of this movie. Talking about it makes me want to move it up on my list.
Yeah, so the drug addict guy you're talking about, and I did not catch this until I read about it. So that guy is played by the same guy who played the bully in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And I did not realize that was him.
Huh.
Like, he did such a good job playing this like strung out drug addict guy.
Yeah, he did.
But here's another thing, and I thought that I saved it because I was like, man, hopefully he brings this movie up a little later on.
I had to bring this movie up.
So I haven't watched it since I read this to like really look into it, but I want to. So I read that Zach Cregger's, because he told the same story from different perspectives, if you actually watch, there are some very slight differences in, where two characters are in the same scene and you see the same scene twice from two different perspectives. And the reason he did that was to show that, even though we were both there and the same thing happened, my memory might be slightly different than yours. And the example they gave was the bar scene where the cop comes in and talks to the teacher. In one scene, he walks up and hugs her, but in her version, or his version, she comes up and hugs him. And in his mind, like, she immediately came on to him. In her version, he came on to her.
So it's how they remember.
It's how they remember.
Yeah.
So you're seeing not just the actual version of the event, you're actually seeing how their brain is playing back the event. And that is genius. Now, I have not went back and watched a check on this, but it makes me want to watch the movie again.
Yeah, I watched all the special features. I bought this movie and watched it for the first time, and it's just amazing. Like, the story sucks you in, but when the principal comes running with his fucking eyes bulging out of his head and covered in blood and attacks her, just out of the blue, because nothing like insanely crazy's happened up until that point in the movie, and that's the end of her story, and you don't get to find out, and then you jump into the guy's story. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, there's some, like, really crazy shit going on here. Like what could, like, you were already like, what the fuck is going on with these kids? And then that happens. And then it's like, I was trying to predict what was going on, and I just couldn't do it. I thought it was genius storytelling. And also the acting is top notch, especially from Julia Gardner.
Oh yeah, she kills it.
Yeah. Amy Madigan, who played the witch lady.
Yeah.
She's 75 years old.
Yeah.
Like 75, 76, one of the two. But she's like, for being that age and to pull off a performance like this, like, that's fucking incredible.
One of my favorite scenes with her is like she goes to see the principal and she's like, oh, his parents have like dysentery. And the guy's like, what?
And there's just something, she does such a good job just playing like just this, there's something off about her.
Yeah.
But you can't tell if she's just too animated.
Yeah.
Like, but it's not enough off to say something to her, but it's enough off to look at everybody around you and be like, "Oh, what the fuck's up with this lady?"
Yeah. All right. So my number 3 is Together, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5. This movie was not even on my radar until one of our listeners wrote us about it and told me that it was a great body horror movie. And from then on, like, I was excited, and he was not wrong. I really liked this movie. You know, one of my favorite things about this is how many scenes make you actually feel secondhand embarrassment and cringe with this movie. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but you were kind of talking about more the anxiety and dread. For me, like, I got a lot of like, oh no, is that like a good example is when like he comes to the school and he looks almost strung out. And I was like, oh no, like she just started working here. This is going to be bad. And it gets worse because they start fucking in this bathroom. And then he's like stuck. And then, you know, when that kid kind of catches them and goes, like, an adult is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then she fucking almost like rips his dick off. And I was just like, oh no.
And then she has to face like the guy she works with.
There's
and
like blood running
like,
down her leg.
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's definitely secondhand embarrassment. In the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where there's like they're at that party and it's there's an announcement, and it was just, I remember there being I don't remember the specifics of it, but he was, I felt so bad for him in that moment. And I remember feeling like a lot of embarrassment.
Yeah, the other scene too, where like they're starting to get stuck together, and he's like, he passes out, and then he wakes up, and she's like on the verge of cutting his like arm off, and you're just, I was on like the edge of my seat, like, oh fuck, like this is gonna be bad. Next is the story. You know, the premise, super interesting. You know, we talked a lot about that, where you got these two people in a relationship, and things are now, they're starting to realize they're not really right for each other necessarily, but they just have different futures picked out already. That's like, you know, a huge part of this movie being really awesome. I think it's kind of a real exaggerated way to look at marriage or having children with somebody, because you are now locked in with this other person, whether it works out or not. You and this person are together. Even if you get divorced, if you got a kid, you're still in some capacity stuck together. And I think that this movie just is an exaggeration of a major life choice like that involving somebody else.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. My favorite thing, though, like hands down, is the effects. In my opinion, you can never go wrong with like bodies merging or morphing into crazy looking shit. This is why people love films like The Thing and The Fly and Society. Like, there is just something deeply disturbing about like an arm or leg turning into goo, or merging into another leg, or, you know, two faces merging together. Like, it's just like addicting. Like, you just want to see that in a movie.
Yeah, when their fucking eyes, which is the cover of the movie, but when their eyes are coming together and you can see the eyelids like reaching out for each other and grabbing on, it's like, holy shit.
I don't have a lot of bad stuff to say about this one, so the next couple things are just nitpicking, but my first thing is like the story is definitely predictable in a lot of ways, especially considering the title of the movie. I was attempting to get a couple to watch this without telling them the plot of the movie, and they guessed it about 5 minutes into the conversation, essentially based upon the title. Yeah, like, and I personally, like, I went into it blind, except for knowing it was a body horror movie, and about 20 minutes in, I kind of knew what was going to occur. My last thing, and this is like a big spoiler, I had so much anticipation for the very end where her parents knock on the door. And I was a little let down that when that door opens and we get the reveal, it wasn't like this horrendous looking creature, like 4 arms and shit. Like, it was just like a regular person.
Well, that's the thing though. They show what happens when you fight it. and with the people in the cave that happened to, and it's like this deformed thing, and they realize that they have to, like,
Give in, yeah.
they have to both love each other so much and give in to this and let it happen, or that's what's gonna happen to them. And that was just kind of like a genius part to put into the movie, and even knowing from the very beginning, knowing it's a body horror and it's called together, and you figure out really quick that these two people are gonna merge, I think that's okay, because then in your head, you're, like, excited for it. You're like, "How are they gonna do this?" Like, "This is awful, but I it's like a car crash,
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
look away."
It's like a
I'm
sideshow, you know? Like, I don't wanna see a bearded lady, but, I mean, you're offering it.
Yeah, might as well.
Might as well. Like I said, these are nitpicks. These are me having to find something. Honestly, totally okay with the ending, but if I were to pick any ending, that door would have opened and it would have looked like something from The Thing. That's
Yeah.
just me. My final thoughts on this one, it is a fantastic movie if you like body horror or relationships gone wrong. It looks good, the acting's good. You will 100% get secondhand embarrassment while watching this. One of my favorite movies of the year, hands down. Total sleeper hit, in my opinion. 4.5 from me. All right, so on to my number 2. This was a big one. My number 2 is The Long Walk, which I gave a whopping 4.8 out of 5. This is directed by Francis Lawrence. I just want to start off by saying that, for one, I never expected this movie to land this far up on my list. And two, I really like this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a number 2.
Really
You
fucking
gotta
like
really
this
like
movie.
it.
So at first I thought, like, this really isn't a very scary movie. And the more I thought about it, the more it became the scariest movie of the year. And I will explain what I mean by that. So, jumping into the good category, right off the bat, I want to talk about how good the characters are, considering the fact that I already knew the plot of this movie and that pretty much like everyone was going to die within the first like 15 minutes in. I knew I was fucked. Like, I was in trouble. I was like, oh, I like everybody already.
Yeah.
Like, shit. I had already fell into that trap of really liking at least the main characters. And then I knew that I was going to have to watch them all die, which ended up being like worse than I thought originally it was going to be. But, the hardest part was watching this like really amazing friendship between Pete and Ray. It forms, and we know that one of them is going to have to die. And then as we get closer and closer to the end, I started to realize that one of them is going to end up trying to sacrifice himself for the other one. And then you learn both of their backstories, and you're like, fuck. Like, I just want them both to win.
Yeah.
They're both deserving of it. Like, no. And then, that one dude, like the really religious guy who he starts having the nosebleed, and they basically carry him for a while. And he gives like the necklace. He's like, give this to my grandma. Like, that shit that tore me up. But you remember I was telling you that I had this epiphany while watching this movie, and it changed how I watched the movie. So I think that there is a really important hidden message in the story itself. And what makes it scary is this epiphany I had. The long walk in this story is a representation of life itself. As we start through life, we are optimistic and physically in great shape. But as we move forward, we get like more and more physically and emotionally tired and more cynical. We also meet like great people along the way that we just naturally connect with. And as you learn more and more of these people's backstories, you realize like we all go through these hardships that make us worthy of something like really good and really grand in the end. And the hardest part of it all is you meet these like amazing people in your life knowing that one day they're going to die and you got to go on. And eventually you're going to die. So another great thing is you meet people that you initially can't stand or you dislike, but sometimes you get to see the good in these people and maybe at least realize why some of those unlikable people are the way they are. Kind of like we see with the guy who's like the general's son, or the long-haired guy, like the asshole for most of the movie. You really find out like he's just super lonely and sad is why he's an asshole. But the biggest thing is like sometimes in life you have to lean on each other to keep each other going, like we see a lot in this movie. And after I had this epiphany, I couldn't, like, I thought about it for days and it kind of scared me. Like, it was like, holy shit, like the people that I love that are around me are eventually going to die and I got to keep going.
Yeah,
And
or you're gonna die first. Yeah,
yeah.
one of the two, and they gotta keep going.
And like, as
And
I've,
all those people that you meet that are worthy of these great things, some of them aren't gonna have great things. Some of them
yeah,
aren't gonna have great endings. Their life isn't gonna turn out to be great things.
no, to put it in simpler terms, we are Ray, our loved ones are like Pete and the gang, and the life is like one big long walk.
Yeah.
And that's the movie. And that made it the scariest movie of the year. Like that's scared me more than any other movie I ever seen. Was like the movie made me kind of reflect back to myself.
Yeah, you're living this movie.
Yeah.
We all we all are.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie was fantastic. I know you had asked me kind of, my thoughts on, because I had mentioned an honorable mention pick of mine as a great movie, but doesn't have as much horror. And you asked me my thoughts on this, and we were outside of that epiphany kind of on the same page of why this movie. I already had it in my head, like what makes this movie so scary, and that just adds another element to it. One thing that I want to add for me and you personally that this movie reminded me of is when you're going through something really tough, you really do latch on and make friends with people to get through it. And it reminded me a lot of going through basic training.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
for those that don't know, we joined with the Army through the buddy system, and we got to, as brothers, go through basic training and AIT together. And we got to latch on and make friendships with people that, that's really what keeps you motivated and keeps you going when you've had enough. And if you were by yourself, you would be done. But latching onto those friendships and knowing that they're going through the same shit as you, and there's times that they're down and you have to pick them up, and there's times that you're down and they have to pick you up. And that was another thing that I kind of took from this movie.
Yeah, this movie, man, if you go and you watch it with that mindset, it is a very scary movie because it makes you realize you are currently on that walk. And sometimes there's good times, sometimes you laugh with other people, and sometimes it's miserable, sometimes it's sad, sometimes you don't know if you're going to be able to keep walking. That is what this movie is. And another thing I loved about it was how, thanks to Pete, I kind of woke up the next day and started to want to put more effort into looking for the good in everything. That is like really easy to lose. And it's easy to become cynical, especially in like this day and time where you turn on the news or you open your phone and it's negative, negative, negative. And you really need to kind of look at it more like the character in the movie Pete, where there's always a sprinkle of some kind of good in everything. And this kind of inspired me to try to do that better. As for my bad, like honestly, I could probably talk about this movie for 30 minutes straight. But as for the bad, very, very little bad for this. For me, the ending is left a little open and not super clear, which I think was done on purpose. I have read a lot of people's interpretation of what happened. Some people think that because Pete won, he basically went free and clear. Other people think that he immediately got killed after shooting the general And when he looks to continue walking, that's really like him walking the tunnel of the afterlife. There's a lot of really good theories, and it's not 100% clear exactly what occurs. I don't have any problem with the ending as it is. If I had to this was me just having to pick something negative out of the movie, but this was almost my number one pick of the year because of how it,
Sounds like it changed your life.
it changed my outlook on some things at the time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, as far as the ending goes, I don't think he got killed. They did make the point that, when he talks about killing the general, and they're like, you can't do that. You'll be killed on the spot. And he's like, you don't know that. Like
Yeah.
you're essentially a made man once you win. Like you're untouchable. So that's uncharted territory. We don't know what would happen. And considering that the general's dead, and there's probably a ton of people who work close to him that don't like him too much, that may have been enough to keep him alive.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think of it.
Yeah, my final thoughts on this, amazing movie. If you're into good acting, good characters, good story development, it's very similar to Sinners in that regard, I think. It has some pretty good effects, not a ton, but what we do see looks really good. But if you love movies that can like stir up emotions, man, this is definitely there. I did see someone say that they could see this movie being on the same level as like Shawshank Redemption in 20 years, and I could agree with that. Yeah, man, 4.8 for me. Fantastic movie.
So moving on to my number 2, that is going to be Bring Her Back. I gave this movie a 4.5. This is another A24, the Philippou brothers, and I love everything that they're doing. They're absolute masters of creepy, dreadful, suspense-filled masterpieces. I loved the found footage part of it. It wasn't too much of the movie, but what was in there was incredibly horrifying, and it was great at dropping little hints as to what's going on in the story. It's definitely not a movie that spoon feeds you. Like, you really have to pay attention, and I kind of like that. I like movies you got to pay really close attention to and pick things up. I thought the acting was amazing. The ability to make my skin crawl and me like wiggle in my seat, we mentioned this earlier, is something that I do cherish. And they do that extremely well in this movie. Good example of that is the table biting scene.
I forgot about
the
that.
audio cut, the fucking just like the effects on it, the blood, how long it lasts, it just makes your skin crawl. And there's a bunch of scenes like this with this character that is possessed. And the downfall of this character through like possessed self-harm reminded me so much of the brother in Talk to Me. Like when he's banging his head and he keeps fucking himself up, and it's so uncomfortable and creepy and suspenseful.
Talking about the little brother, right?
Yeah, when he's like, he just keeps like in the hospital even afterwards. Like, at first he's at the party, he fucks himself up, slamming his face into the fucking table. And then he ends up in the hospital and he just keeps like fucking himself up. And that's how this little, possessed character in this movie is. And we get a couple scenes like that, and it's just so fucking just it makes your skin crawl, and the audio cuts on it are amazing. Like the bite down on the table, hearing and seeing the teeth break out, like it's just awesome. I thought this movie had such a dark and twisted just feel and atmosphere to it. And that combined with the awesome, super creepy found footage and, this whole cult thing that you slowly figure out through these clues that are left really, really, really made it a standout movie for me. And I remember leaving the theater and that being the first theater watch for me of the year that I came out where I was like, that was an amazing movie.
Yeah, I definitely need to watch it again. for me, like, the movie is just pure emotional nightmare fuel. You know, that's what I get out of a lot of it
And
because
I love that.
and it's done so well. Like, these guys know how to do creepy, scary shit. 100%.
Yeah, they know how to make your skin crawl.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
they are horror fans who have, minds like us, and they've tapped into what buttons to push and when to push them. And I feel like a lot of us horror fans can do that. Like, if you sat down and said, what's something that would make somebody's skin crawl, we could come up with that. But what separates them is to be able to write an amazing story around that. And the fact that they're able to tell these amazing stories and put these scenes in that are just make your skin crawl and make you feel sick to your fucking stomach and make these like really dark like atmosphere. It's just when you combine all that together, I fucking love what these two are doing.
Yeah, I think the next movie they're working on is Talk to Me, which
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are excited about. That movie's going to blow up.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, you ready to move on to number one? Because I have a feeling we got the same number one.
Yeah.
It's looking like it.
Yeah, so my number one is going to be Black Phone 2.
Yep, same.
Yeah, I gave this movie a 4.9, 4.8, 4.9, somewhere in there. I'm not sure what I wrote here, but I'm just going to round it up to a 4.9. I loved it. Going into this, I watched a couple different shows that did their top 20 lists or whatever. And just to make sure that I was all the movies that they were listing on for movies I'd seen and knew about. And nobody had this fucking movie in their top movies.
Yeah, I think this is getting slept on, man.
And I don't fucking understand it.
I don't either.
And I'm so glad that we covered the first one right before going to see this in theaters.
Yeah, I think it helped.
There's so many connections that I wouldn't have remembered or put together from the first one had we not just did a deep dive into it. This thing is an absolute fucking masterpiece as far as atmosphere. Characters design, storytelling, all of it incredible. The continuity was fantastic. To be able to get the same actors back this long, it's been...
They got the whole cast back.
Yeah,
man.
It's been like 4 or 5 years, and to get everybody back, including Ethan Hawke, who didn't even initially want to play in the first one, and, only really looked at the script because of Sinister.
Scott Derrickson, yeah.
Yeah, working with them on Sinister, which he didn't really want to do that either, and he finally was like, yeah, okay, this is a good script, I'll do this horror movie. So Sinister really led to us getting this movie, and I mean, just the connections, the continuity, like the first one, we get these incredibly creepy Super 8 shots of these kids being killed, and it's slowly adding pieces to the puzzle. We get to find out more of the grabber's backstory.
Oh, I love that, yeah.
And the family's backstory, and find out that they're connected, that it wasn't all just completely random. I thought that having the grabber come back in death was genius. I know a lot of people instantly thought the Freddy Krueger, the ripping off of that, but had he been just a regular serial killer in the first movie, that, would have made a little bit more sense. But considering the whole first movie was these kids calling from the dead and him having this ability.
Yeah, and that's like one line he says that in.
Yeah, and that's like something you got to really pay attention to. And we had just did that deep dive, and I was like, that makes the second one, like the fact that he comes back from the dead and goes after the sister is genius. And then the character design of the grabber himself.
Oh, it's so crazy.
They took the mask from the first one and made it like this frozen fucking, like, at one point he takes the bottom half off and it like rips the skin off his face. Well, so horrifying.
You know why that part is so cool? And I would not have known that without doing the deep dive on the first one was you remember in the movie when they're fighting and he rips the mask off, and instead of grabbing Finney, he goes for the mask instead.
Yeah, and the fucking climax.
Yeah. So in this one, the mask has become his skin.
Yeah, it's become
and
him.
it mirrors what we've seen him do in real life when he was a human.
Yeah.
He did not want that mask off.
Well, we talked about he kind of used that mask to hide behind, and now in the dead, it's become his true personality. It's become merged with his face, and that looked awesome. We get some incredible effects in this, and then we get some legitimately horrifying scenes of these dead kids coming in the cabin.
Yeah.
When they're all fucked up and she keeps having these crazy dreams. It watching it and putting myself in that situation in that cabin gave me anxiety. I was like, holy shit, this would be legitimately fucking horrifying. And with all that, man, I don't see how more people aren't talking about this movie.
Yeah, I was essentially almost cheering as I'm 30 minutes in. There's a scene where he's attacking her in her sleep, but she's in the bunk, and her brother and the other guy are trying to fucking help, just like we see in stuff Dream Warriors, right? And he does something in her dream, but she ends up floating in the air in real life, and then she spins super fast and it flings fucking blood everywhere.
Yeah.
That was awesome. It's one of the coolest things I've seen all year.
In the dream, he flings her in the phone booth, and there's blood spraying all over the inside of this phone booth, but her body in real life is doing the same thing in the cabin, and it's awesome.
Yeah, this is a sequel that I might like more than the original.
I agree. And I liked the original a lot, but this movie went so much more in on the horror and the dark side of the grabber. And man, it was awesome.
Yeah, I also love the choice to focus on Gwen this time and kind of make Finn the secondary character. I love to see kind of how Finn does not live a happily ever after. After the first one, that's very realistic. But I think that the way they did it kept the story fresh and entertaining. Love the backstory stuff with the grabber. I love that it happens at a summer camp. It just gave it a really cool kind of camp vibe, The ghosts of the dead kids are awesome. The flashback showing the grabber killing the mom, it full circles the story. And I think that it's a really cool, and it's overlooked, but it's a really cool part where they tell the dad, because the dad thinks she killed herself.
Mm-hmm.
And they prove, Gwen's ability by telling him the first thing he said when he's seen her. That's just something that only he would know.
Yeah.
And they essentially, because we know he's an alcoholic in the first one because of this event. And they kind of, release him from that burden of that being on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And I think it's it's a really impactful, really emotional scene that gets overlooked because there's so much other cool stuff. The addition of the camp owner who's been, searching for these kids for, 20 years or whatever, he's a great character. And then we get more prominent in scary Super 8 footage. And the Super 8 stuff is one of the things that makes the Black Phone movie stand out to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Such a good movie. I mean, honestly, we're gonna cover it this year.
We gotta do a deep dive, on this thing very soon.
Yeah, definitely a really good movie. I'm actually excited to watch it again. But I remember I watched it before you did, and I think I talked to you halfway through it or something, and I told you dude, I was I found the movie that's at the top of my list. And I'm not even over. It's not even over yet. But I knew at that point, I was finally a fucking movie that I really, really loved.
This movie?
Yeah.
You didn't go to the theaters and watch this
I
with
rented
us?
it.
Oh, we went. Okay, so me and Brooke went and seen it in the theater.
You guys went. on the last day it was available.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
God, you should have seen it in the theater.
I know.
It was fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Like, the atmosphere, the music, like, the fucking... I knew it was going to be awesome when they fucking dropped Alice in Chains in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. For anybody who hasn't seen this, fucking go out and watch it. And if you're a fan of the show, listen to our episode on the Black Phone 1 and then watch this, because there's so many connections. Or listen to our episode, watch the first one, and then go into this one, because there's so many small connections. Like Finney beats his kid's ass in the beginning of this.
Oh, I love
and
this.
And he makes the comment that his best friend, that kid that looked after him in the first one, he says the same line that he says in the beginning of the last one, like, was all the blood necessary? And he's like, yeah, it
makes a point.
Makes a point. Yeah. The fucking there's a bunch of just small little things like that really stands out. And then the friend that they take with them to the cabin is you don't know this until later on in the movie, but it's that kid's brother.
Yep.
And they got the same actor to play him.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that until you told me.
Yeah. So and you completely can't tell that. Like I found that out by looking it up. And yeah, man, it's awesome movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie. I gave it a 4.6. My final thoughts on this one, it's super fun, very entertaining. They managed to bring back the whole cast who everybody stepped it up. The grabber, way more powerful, way more scary. The addition of his dream powers is like a really cool plot point in the story. Madeline McGraw, Mason Thames, and Ethan Hawke do a amazing job, all three of them.
So glad you got all their names.
Yeah, I think it's totally worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Yeah, my number one movie of the year. Yep,
as well as mine. I didn't think it was going to be your number one.
Oh, dude, yeah. As soon as I seen it, like it was,
and I couldn't believe that out of all the videos I watched, nobody had this even in their top 10.
Crazy. I do got some quick honorable mentions I'll burn through real fast. Oz Perkins' Keeper, which I gave it 3.72. This movie's super creepy. Like if you're into creepy and creepy imagery, this movie's going to be up your alley. It didn't hit my top 10 because I do think the story's a little simple, which is like kind of common with Oz Perkins. Beautiful movie, very creepy, visually amazing, story a little thin. Presence, which I gave it 3.8. Fantastic idea, executed very well, but it is definitely a bit of a slow burn. Don't watch it when you're sleepy. I had that problem. I was getting a little tired.
I did the same thing.
But it just didn't have enough substance to it to hit my top 10, but very cool idea, very cool and good execution of that idea. And then finally, number 3, which is Until Dawn. I gave it 3.6. I've never played the game, so this was kind of a fresh new idea to me. The ending was not my favorite at all. I kind of hated the ending, and it kind of lost me in the third act. It became really predictable, but this movie has a ton of awesome kills and a very interesting premise. So definitely worth a mention.
My honorable mentions, Presence. Again, they do a really cool thing at the end of Presence.
Yeah, a little twist, a little loop around,
Little spoiler. Well, I won't spoil it, but it's a really cool premise. It's essentially in a violent nature, but following a ghost around.
Yeah.
And thought that was awesome. I was super excited. I was really hoping that was going to make my top 10. Until Dawn, super awesome fucking kills. Like the fact that, and I never played the game, so forgive me for those out there who were super offended because it wasn't anything like the game. But the fact that all these horror tropes come back to kill these people over and over again, and we get these awesome kills.
Yeah, really fun. First half,
serial killer, witchcraft, like all types of different shit, ghosts, fucking demons. Like they get killed in so many different ways. It's awesome. I did put Silent Night, Deadly Night on here. I don't like it as a remake necessarily, but one thing I did like is and we just did, this is our last episode, we just covered this, and it was the idea that the grandpa was actually possessed, and this is the thing that or it temporarily possesses the grandpa, and that's why he says all this crazy shit in the beginning. And Billy is like possessed by this thing that makes him kill in this Christmas suit. And they really ran with that idea,
Yeah.
which I thought was really cool. And then finally, Frankenstein, which as a movie overall, amazing, beautiful movie. I give it easily a 4.5. Great story. It just wasn't scary enough to actually make my top 10 list.
Yeah, the old Frankenstein, but it's Del Toro, and I'm sure it's beautiful, and
it's
an amazing movie.
It is a great movie.
That man makes some amazing movies. Well, that is our top 10 list for the year. It started off a little rocky, the first half of the year, but it definitely picked up, and it gave us some bangers on the second half of 2025. Hit us up with your top 10 and let us know if we changed your minds about any of these or inspired you to check out any of these fantastic movies. That is honestly one of the best parts of the show, is when we introduce you guys to something you've never seen before. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoyed the show. Check out the website, check out the socials, check out the store, and get yourself a Grindhouse t-shirt kicking off 2026 in style. Tell a friend, a family member, or your favorite horror movie director about the show, and we hope to see you next time.